And the way that he approached his art making was really amazing. He was at the height of his career when he passed not too long ago. We invited John Hitchcock back for a solo exhibition because he's a musician as well. And so when he came and made prints at the University of Montana, he said, you know, I really am thinking about something that uses printmaking, but also neon and sound and rock and roll and the blues. And he proposed this multimedia installation called Bury the Hatchet. And it was, he came out with his band and they performed in the museum. So we always look for interdisciplinary opportunities as well. This is the work of Lillian Pitt. And sometimes our cultural advisors say, you really need to do a project with this person. This is Lillian Pitt. She's an elder. She worked as a hairdresser until she was 30 and didn't do anything with art. And she ended up taking a local clay class and started making masks. And she started with Northwest tribes, and then she started focusing on her tribe, which is Warm Springs Yakima. The mask making, she always does uses pictographs and petroglyphs from the Columbia River Basin and depicts them in different ways. And so you can see these pictographs and petroglyphs on the side of this blown glass piece. And when she started doing this, she had to ask her community for permission to tell these stories and in the ways that she wanted to tell these stories. This was an exhibition that we had just recently, and it's an opportunity to connect to that cultural knowledge that's been in this area for such a long time. She had so many stories to tell. She's had a 40+ long career, and it was really an honor to be able to showcase her artwork. This is what we currently have up, and we're getting ready to close the slideshow and my comments. We've been thinking about different ways to do this work that we do and to decolonize the museum. And so that's one way about shifting power and shifting narratives. And so we asked again for a series of guest selectors or guest curators to look at the contemporary Native art collection and select a piece and then talk about why that piece is significant. And so you saw Corky Claremont earlier. This is a split war shield that Corky did. That's cast paper and a print. And Corky is significant for founding the art department at SKC and doing a lot of great work in creating that department. The person who's taken over for him is Cameron Decker, and Cameron is in his 30s, really energetic. And I said, because you've inherited the department from Corky and you look at him as a mentor, we're wondering if you could write about this piece. And so he wrote a wonderful description of why this piece is important. And we've asked people to write directly to the artwork. So Cameron wrote, "Dear Split War Shield, I've been waiting to write this letter for a long time. I didn't know that I wanted to write this to you, but I've been working towards this." The letter was so touching that we invited Cameron and Corky to record an oral history through StoryCorps. I don't know if you listen to NPR in the mornings, but often they have a StoryCorps story. And Cameron and Corky recorded one just about their relationship and their friendship. Because we've got these relationships with artists, here is another way pre-coronavirus that people could write letters to objects, is to sit down on a typewriter. We thought that it would be fun if people could send emails directly to artworks or postcards or letters. And so we created a little station so that people could pound out their innermost thoughts to these collection objects. The piece in the background is another piece by Molly Murphy Adams. And so once you have a relationship with an artist and you've purchased their work and you've shown a commitment to them, that sometimes they remember you. And so Molly said, I created this piece using a Forest Service map of Missoula. And I did it to show, it's called Epicenters and Impacts. I did it to show all the different places in and around Missoula County where Indigenous women have gone missing, been kidnapped, or been murdered. And so you can't see the detail, but there's little concentric rings showing different people who've gone missing or been killed. And she said, this is such a sensitive subject matter. It's not appropriate for me to sell. I can't give this to my gallery. And because it's about Missoula and you guys do such good work, I'd like to send it to you and give it to the collection. And so sometimes there's unexpected gifts like that, but then you also you also have the unexpected responsibility of caring for them and for bringing that story out into the public. This is one of the camps. You can see that this kid's masked up. MAM has been open since June 4th with protocols and distancing in place. And here's a camp counselor with the Boys and Girls Club up in Ronan, working with a kid, and they're doing drawings in the Love Letters exhibition. We think that this exhibition, it's a year-long exhibition, and as the exhibition grows, we think that people are going to select almost every piece in the contemporary native art collection. So you'll see it from floor to ceiling, really spaced in there. And I just wanted to end on this. This is Jay Labor, the artist who I mentioned. His Reborn Resurrects, that was the name of his studio. He was a student up at SKC in forestry and started messing around with art on the side using broken down cars that he found on the reservation and cutting them apart and using the metal to shape the pieces. This is, you'll remember the one at the University of Montana called Charging Forward, the mounted warrior right in front of the Adams Center. And we've got the art park, so we wanted to feature large scale sculptures by Jay. Most of them are in public collections or cited. You'll notice that there's one owned by the city of Stevensville. If you go up to the Blackfeet Reservation, his mounted sentinels are the ones that greet you. He's really become emblematic of Montana and the Blackfeet Nation in a certain sense, and his pieces are used to communicate ideals about this place that we live in. And this is kind of a funny bison with its tongue sticking out, and you'll notice its tail's raised up. Everybody knows what bison do when they raise their tails, right? Well, if you look back there, if you walk around the sculpture, you'll see a little mirror right underneath the tail, and it's reflecting your face back at you, kind of as a little bit of a tongue-in-cheek humor that Jay snuck in there. But this is the first time that a publication or an exhibition of Jay's work has been done. He died last year, and so this is really a memorial exhibition. I deeply regret that it's been impacted by COVID and we haven't been able to celebrate his life and his art in a way that befits him, because he's really a major artist, kind of like a folk artist or an outsider artist from the Missoula area. And I think that his work really communicates ideas about Montana so well. So that's a little bit about the work that we do at the Missoula Art Museum, focused on the contemporary native collection. We also focus on Montana modernism, and that's a very special chapter of history that started pretty much post-World War II up until the 90s. when the Montana modernists started passing on. It's an amazing chapter because in Montana, you can chart the course of modernism very clearly by the arrival of certain individuals or by certain individuals leaving Montana to study with modernist artists and then returning to Montana. And it's got this really crazy history that's mixed up with ranching. So I think, you know, the archetype of the rancher artist is one that only exists in Montana. It's a fun story to tell. And then we're always looking for young, emerging contemporary artists that are doing challenging work. Um, Sometimes that gets us in trouble. We don't shy away from controversy, but we try to use art as a way to create conversation and dialogue. And so if there is difficult subject matter or things that challenge the intellect or your personal values, we feel like yes, we can present it with the appropriate dialogue and conversation. And so we do our best to create great education, great outreach, great interpretation. Thank you all for listening so much. I really appreciate your attention. I'd be happy to answer any questions. Jim, I didn't go too long, did I?
No, no, no. Thank you very much. That was great. Does anyone have any questions or comments? Bill?
Yes, I wanted to pass on to you, Brandon. My son-in-law's mother worked for many years as in public relations for the Nelson Art Gallery in Kansas City, Missouri.
Oh, yeah.
And she came to Missoula visiting family, went to MAM, and her comments were she was extremely impressed by the quality of art that you had at MAM.
Wow, that means a lot coming from somebody who knows the Nelson Atkins inside and out. We've got a very funny conduit to Kansas City and the Nelson Atkins through a number of artists that either studied at the Kansas City Art Institute or have shown at the Nelson Atkins. It's been an interesting relationship. One of which, and this is an odd one, is Willem Volkers. He's a neon artist from Bozeman who uses found objects. He was liberated by American forces when he was a child in the Netherlands, and an American soldier gave him a cigarette as a keepsake when he was liberated. Small little 6-year-old Willem, and he kept that cigarette for years and never smoked it. And he looks at American culture using found objects, mostly kitsch and kind of roadside attractions, and the phenomenon of neon, along with paint by numbers to make these big installations. And he's been fascinated by Americana and American culture for years. And when he was living in Kansas and going to school, he would travel around and find artists like Jay Labor, these self-taught outsider artists that just kind of made work because they had to. And he put together the best collection of folk art and outsider art in the country. And because MAM has shown his work and has shown that collection, he allowed us to select the 44 objects that are the cream of the crop, pretty much, of that folk art collection. And then the rest went to a national folk art repository in Wisconsin, the Kohler Center. And so now we have a relationship with the Kohler and this obligation to do research and create exhibitions together. But occasionally we put that collection on view, and I always think of the Nelson Atkins.
Wolf? You have to unmute, Wolf.
I got it. Thanks for your presentation, Brandon. I was curious how MAM cooperates with the university museum, especially now that Raphael is in charge.
Thanks. We we have this group in town called the Museum Collective, and it's got the Gallery of Visual Arts on campus, the Montana Museum of Art and Culture, Fort Missoula, and we get together probably less than we should, but once every couple months, and look at schedules to find areas of cooperation and overlap that we can benefit from. Jeremy Canwell and I are close personal friends, and so we talk a lot about work on the side and how to do things together, and we just look for opportunities. Mostly we want to collaborate, but we also want to avoid stepping on each other's toes, and so I don't want to do anything that steals their thunder. I guess a good example is the textile artist who lives in Patty Canyon, Nancy Erickson, gave MAM a gift of 22 pieces, and we just went through the review process recently and took a look at those. They're beautiful pieces, and they, you know, she said, "You better hurry up." I said, "We'd like to show these," and she said, "You better hurry up. I don't know how much longer I've got in me." And I said, "You bet. The selection is worthy of an exhibition, this because it shows a continuum from the 60s all the way up until her most recent pieces." And I know Jeremy is thinking about, they're planning an exhibition of the Patty Canyon Ladies Salon, which is a really influential artist-led group in town that meets at Nancy Erickson's studio. And so while Jeremy and I were fishing, I said, "Hey, you mentioned the ladies salon and that you're planning this. When are you planning that for?" We were thinking about doing something with Nancy Erickson's work, but I either want to do it in a way that amplifies your efforts or avoids it altogether, depending on what your preference is. And so he said, we're doing it out in 2021 or 2022, and we're still planning it. And I said, well, we might try to do something just with Nancy's work a little sooner, because she and Ron have been shut-ins, and I just want to make sure that we celebrate this gift before she passes. And so we do stuff like that, and we have that relationship with the School of Art department, as well as Matrix Press, and we just look for lots of different inroads as much as possible. Also Native American studies. We've worked with different departments and kind of use that collective group of scholarship on campus as much as we can.
Sandy?
We also, one last thing, we also pass collection pieces back and forth. And so we try to avoid duplication in the collection. You know, if there's an artist that has a university background or a special history, we say, why don't you collect this artist and we'll focus on this artist over here, or maybe this would be more suited to the university collection because that person taught here from, you know, for 40 years. So we just try to get along. It's a pretty wonderful opportunity to have two museums in the same city and to create cooperative programming.
So I attended a webinar yesterday from MAM, and they are partnering with the Fort Missoula Museum, doing an exhibition on World War II in the internment camps that I think is going to be outstanding, both of you doing it. And I want to say, Brandon, thank you very much for motivating me and Jim Elander will get over there this week to see the exhibit before it closes. That's
great, thanks. Yeah, that's Witness to Wartime, and it's curated by a scholar who lives in the Northwest, Barbara Johns. She's written this book, Hope of Another Spring, and she's a national expert on Japanese internment and incarceration. And she's been working with sites like the Alien Detention Center, as well as other sites, some of the more formal war relocation camps across the country. And Fuji, who's the artist, was not detained at Fort Missoula, but but the story is so similar, and the artwork that came out of there and is really interesting. And he gives us a special insight. You know, it's a firsthand account, much like the example in the Montana Museum of Art and Culture collection of Ben Steele, who was from the Bataan Death March, a prisoner for several years. Those firsthand accounts by artists are invaluable.
As a matter of fact, just for everybody's information, we're going to be hearing in 2 weeks from a fellow from the Fort Missoula Museum. Matt something, I can't remember his last name.
Lotzenheiser, he's the director.
Okay, he'll be with us in 2 weeks.
He's incredible. I'm really glad. Maybe he'll speak a little bit more about our collaboration or the work he's done to elevate the Alien Detention Center history at Fort Missoula.
Any other comments or questions? Jim? You have to unmute yourself, Jim.
I got it. I found it. When is James Wiley going to get his split personality together?
I don't know. I'm hoping the second James Wiley can figure out how my name got in there in the first place. If you're using a PC or a laptop, it's down in the lower left-hand corner, Jim. Left-hand corner.
On my mini iPad, it's in the upper right corner.
Okay, now we should be able to hear you. Jim, say something.
That's strange.
Yeah.
Looks like his mic doesn't work.
Jim, if you have a question that I can answer, feel free to email me too. My email is on the Missoula Art Museum website, and it's pretty simple. It's just brandon@missoulaartmuseum.org. I'd love to hear from any of you with follow-up questions or comments or stories about the Nelson Atkins. I think that those connections across museums and with people are invaluable. So I'd really love to hear from you more. Thank you all for giving me the opportunity to meet with you this morning. I wasn't sure how it was going to go in terms of screen sharing or connectivity, but I'm glad we made it through. So thanks again.
Thank you
very much.
All right.
Okay, does anyone else have anything else?
Well, I think we should have a contest, and whoever can figure out who the mysterious owner is should get a prize.
Yeah.
Also, we're having a board meeting next week, so stay after if you have anything you want to bring up to help our forum.
Well, Wolf, I think the only way to solve that owner question is to start a waiting room, and then I won't let him in.
There you go.
Okay, great. Well, thanks to everybody. We'll see you all next week.
Thank you, Brandon.
Bye.
Bye.
Next week, we're going to be hearing from Cheryl Nothi or something like that from the Missoula Writing Collaborative,
Oh, yay.
teaching children to write, love to write, poetry saves lives.
Oh, fun.
That'll be excellent.
Okay, good. Goodbye all.